I'm Jacob's Quest, and today I just finished watching episode 3 of season 3 of The Mandalorian, obviously full spoilers, and wow. Okay, I loved this episode, and in fact, I'm going to go ahead and say this is easily within the top 3 episodes of The Mandalorian ever. I loved this so much. Okay, so to start off with, you know, we start off with immediately after episode 2, of course, they saw the mythosaur underneath the waters, and Bo-Katan pulled Din Djarin out of the waters, and she was like, what? So right away we get something interesting where Bo-Katan is not telling Din Djarin what she saw, so she's keeping the mythosaur a secret to herself, and her reasons why that might be. You know, maybe she's like, you know, if I can get this instead of the Darksaber, or maybe she thinks that the mythosaur is just going to be safer if she kind of keeps that private knowledge for now, or maybe she doesn't even fully believe what she just saw with her own eyes because it was like that crazy of a thing, right? Either way, that's fascinating that she's keeping that a secret. But pretty immediately they get in their ships and they're headed back to her house, and they're getting followed by some TIE interceptors, and they got to get the hell out of here. So we get amazing space battles where she's got to drop Din Djarin off, and he has to jump out and get back in his ship, and then both of their ships are flying around and circling, and we get just amazing action set pieces this episode where they're flying through the canyons, and it's great, it's amazing, it's awesome. Bo-Katan's house gets destroyed. It gets bombed, and there's a whole fleet coming at them, right? So they're like, that's a lot of guys for, you know, for one warlord, or whatever they said, right? So they're leaving, right? And they're assuming that this all has to do with Moff Gideon, you know, the fact that they got him captured, and they're like, well, I guess we pissed off some Imperials out there. So it's not entirely clear where all these ships came from. There must be, you know, there has to be a starship out there they all came from, I guess. Anyways, so they're leaving. They jump to hyperspace, and Din Djarin's like, all right, I'm gonna take you somewhere where they won't find us. And then the title comes up, and the episode changes entirely. And I loved this. For the next like 40 minutes, the next big chunk of the episode, almost pretty much the entire episode, we are now on Coruscant. And we are with Dr. Pershing, and I thought that this was just going to be like a small little segment, and then we were going to cut back to the Mandalorian, but no. This is like the whole episode, and it's with Dr. Pershing, and wow. So basically, he has enlisted in something called the Amnesty Program, which I guess is for Imperials who the New Republic is essentially willing to be like, all right, you can, you know, you enlist in this program, and we're gonna, you know, we have to deprogram you a little bit, you know, we have to, because it's you know, I'm not sure exactly how many real world parallels there are here as far as, like, I mean, I know that after World War II, the United States took in a lot of doctors and scientists that the Germans had, and, you know, obviously from that we got the nuclear bomb, and, you know, stuff like that happened. I know that, but you know, I don't know how much of an amnesty program type thing there was as far as that's concerned, you know, but basically it's like this, you know, we're gonna decondition you from the Empire's way of doing things, you know, and it just really highlights like how, you know, how different it was, you know, like living under the Imperial rule, and now it's like, okay, well, the New Republic's an entirely different animal, and, you know, like literally your mental conditioning has to change, you know, so you gotta enlist in almost like a Alcoholics Anonymous kind of program in order to join us, you know. But Dr. Pershing's there, and he meets, I can't remember her name, it's this captain lady who we saw with Moff Gideon. She was in a couple episodes as well, and the thing I love about this episode is that Dr. Pershing and this captain lady, is it Ava? I think it was Ava, something like that, right? Anyways, they say her full name. They both, his name is Penn Pershing, and hers is Ava something. Anyways, what I love about this is that before this episode, they, you know, they had been in the show, but they were like minor characters. And I mean, like, they show up, they say a couple of interesting lines of dialogue where they're kind of like hinting at what's going on, and then they go away. But like now they're full actual characters where we spend time with them and we see what their life is like in the New Republic, in this program that they're in, and, you know, they're staying in like these these little apartments where they kind of like, they're trying to come back to normal life, and it's like, it's fascinating. I heard someone compare it to Andor, which I suppose that's an apt comparison, but wow, I was just amazed. Also, we get some interesting things about what Penn Pershing's been doing with his whole his cloning experiments. He mentioned the Kaminoans, and he's like, all right, now we know that we can get a single strand of DNA from the Kaminoans, and we know that they were able to obviously create the clones. And he talks about how his own personal motivation, about how like his mom's heart failed, and if they had cloning technology, then they could have gotten her a new heart, right? Like it would have been real easy to like clone, I guess, just that single organ and save his mom's life. And so it's been like his goal to like create this technology where like we can, he talked about getting the best parts of people and combining them, and like from two donors. So we're getting small hints of what their actual goal was. They don't actually say it. They don't say what was Moff Gideon trying to actually do. They don't actually tell us that, but we do get at least a hint of like, okay, so I guess he was trying to take two donors' DNA and combine them, the best parts of them, into something. Like, so it's like, was this Snoke? Was this Palpatine? Was this something else entirely? It had something to do with Grogu, remember? So, like, he doesn't actually say it, but it's like we're so close to getting this information, and we kind of have a vague idea as to what was going on. Anyways, so, he goes back to his apartment, and he's kind of like, enjoying his first days of walking around Coruscant. And that's the other thing, is that like, this feels like the first time since Attack of the Clones that we're really seeing like what's it like to live on Coruscant, like this giant city planet. For the most part, when we go to Coruscant, we see the Jedi Temple or the Senate building, you know what I mean? And only on those rare occasions do we actually see the ground level of like, so what are the citizens of this planet doing? So we kind of see like okay, people are walking around. It's kind of a tourist attraction area, kind of like a, it's like Madison Square Garden kind of thing. It's like, oh look, there's some jugglers, there's some people selling these, glow light up popsicles, just stuff like that. And it was nice to see, just people talking and walking around and doing like normal people things, not at a Jedi temple or a Senate building, just like they're just walking around and talking. I don't know why, but it was like, oh, okay, this is what Coruscant is like, like last time Attack of the Clones, we saw the nightclubs and the bars and the, like that's what we saw in Attack of the Clones. So it's like, okay, cool. Now we see what a family go do in Coruscant. Oh, they just go to like this park area. Anyways, so basically what ends up happening is Pershing he gets convinced by this captain lady, Ava, right? I can't remember her name. Or is it Era? I don't know. Anyways, basically he gets convinced to sort of continue his research, and in order to do that, they have to break into an old Star Destroyer, and they gotta collect all this stuff from his laboratory, and they talk about how like, oh yeah, I must have passed you 100 times working for Moff Gideon. Like we just never really introduced ourselves, but it wasn't like that then, like again, just kind of highlighting how different things are now. And the whole time this is happening, like, she seems so genuine, and like it looks like they're becoming friends, and she's getting him to trust her. And the whole time I'm like, it can't be this simple. It can't just be that she's being nice and they didn't really know each other, but they worked on the same ship and they're both like in the same program now. I'm like, no, there's some twist coming. She's got to be playing him somehow. And sure enough, they get their equipment and they're talking, and then, oh no, they're after us. They're getting, the New Republic saw us. And as they're being arrested, she picks up all the lab equipment that he had taken. And I guess she's the one who called the New Republic and said what was going on, and she flipped on him. And so now he's like strapped to this, and this is kind of where we see maybe a dark side of the New Republic, where it's like, he's strapped to this thing and he's saying like, oh, this is a mind flayer device, you're gonna wipe my mind. And then this Mon Calamari is like, no, this is just to heal you. This is a rehabilitation device. This is not a mind flayer. It's like, all right, now put these goggles on, you're gonna see some pleasant images, and we're gonna very lightly electrocute your brain. And you get kind of hints of A Clockwork Orange. If you've ever seen that movie, it's, you know, it was kind of the same idea, where it's like the government is gonna take, you know, hoodlums who are behaving badly, and we're gonna do some shock therapy. We're gonna show you a bunch of images, and maybe by the end of it you'll behave better, you know. So like, oh, you're kind of mental conditioning, kind of like what you were trying to deprogram the Empire from doing, you know. So like, you kind of get like a dark side of the New Republic here. You're like, oh, okay. And you know, the whole time, of course, he's like, she tricked me, it was a trap. He says it was a trap to a Mon Calamari, so that was kind of a funny moment. But anyways, so yeah, why did she do this? Was she trying to get his research, or, you know, like, what actually is the plan here? You know, like she's up to something, and I don't know if she's in direct communication with Moff Gideon or what exactly is happening there. But she asked to be like, oh, you know, he was a friend, he relapsed, like, can I just stick around for a little bit? And so she gets left alone in the control room, and she turns up the electricity. So I don't know if she's trying to kill him, or if she's trying to like just fry his brain. I don't know what's going on here, but like, it's fascinating. And I loved that we got like, it felt like the Clone Conspiracy. It was an episode of the Bad Batch recently, and it had that level of like, you know, espionage kind of thriller type feeling to it, you know, because they're all talking about like the New Republic and the Empire and this program, and it's like, well, who can you trust? And you know, is it okay to continue to research if it's for the right reasons and if you're doing the right thing? And you know, like, and now of course it ends with him getting betrayed, so it's like, of course it does. That was like the tone of this whole episode. It was like, oh man, you can't trust anybody, you know. Just so yeah, I don't know exactly what her motivations here are. I can't imagine, you know, maybe she just needed him to pack up all the stuff he needed, that way she can go steal it later, and now it's all like in one package, right? Maybe she just didn't know exactly what he needed for his experiments, and they don't need him anymore. That's, you know what I mean? Like, so something is going on there. So it has something to do with all of his lab equipment and everything that he needed, but his mind, I can't imagine that he's gonna be normal after this, because you know, she turned that thing all the way up. So yeah, I don't know exactly what the plan is. I have to imagine that she's somehow communicating with Moff Gideon, right? Like, this is all part of some kind of plan, or something. But yeah, fascinating stuff. And then at the end of the episode, we finally do cut back to Bo-Katan and Din Djarin, and they've, you know, he's taken her back to his place where all of his Mandalorians are, the covert, right? So they show up there, and they're like, all right, I bathed in the waters. And at first it seemed like they weren't gonna believe him, so he has, like, luckily he took a little sample of the waters, because that was another thing. I was like, how, you got to prove it, you know what I mean? Like, how do you prove that you like went in some water? So I guess, you know, having a sample of the water helps, right? So they let him in, and she, you know, the armorer, you know, pours some of the water, and it's all like mystical, and like it's got like lights and stuff in it. So exactly what's going on there, I'm not sure. I don't know why it's all lighty uppy, but anyways, she's like, yep, this is the living water, you did it, good job, you are forgiven. And then here's the interesting thing, she's like, all right, Bo-Katan, you know, your house was not following the way, you know, the ancient way, right? Because all the different Mandalorian belief systems. And she's like, well, you also bathed in the water, and you haven't taken your helmet off, so if you want to, you can become one of us. And they're just like, this is the way. And Bo-Katan's sitting there, and she's being congratulated by all the other members of the Mandalorians, and she doesn't say anything. So, but you kind of get this sense of like, she kind of conflicted here, because you have all these Mandalorians here, and that this is kind of like what happened to her, is that, you know, all her Mandalorian forces that she had gathered, they all left her because she didn't have the Darksaber. And now here she is surrounded by Mandalorians being welcome in, right? So it's got to be sort of like, this is her chance to, you know, take back Mandalore, especially now that they have proof. They've proved it to the armorer and this whole cult that, like, the planet is not toxic. It's not impossible to go into the living waters. You can totally do this. So now Bo-Katan has to be thinking, I could totally join these people and we can go take back Mandalore. And maybe I'll worry about the whole, helmet rule later, because she, as long as she doesn't take it off, she can totally just stick around for a while and maybe just convince these people to do what she had planned on doing and take back Mandalore, right? Now again, she's keeping the Mythosaurus secret, so she's got to be thinking of like, okay, if I go in the water, I know where the Mythosaur is. If I can tame that thing in front of everyone, then maybe I don't even need the Darksaber, so she's got to be trying to convince everyone to come to Mandalore now that they have proof it's not toxic, right? So I don't know, there's probably all kinds of wheels turning and ideas forming in Bo-Katan's head, right? Because it's like, I don't want to officially join these people. She even says, I don't walk the way. But the armor's like, well, if you keep the helmet on, you can do it, Now I know this is going to be a conflicting point with fans, because fans are probably, a lot of people are anti-cult, right? Which obviously it's like, yeah, it's a cult. But a lot of people are like, no, Din Djarin should, he should figure out that the cult is nonsense, and you don't need to like do all this stuff to, be forgiven by the cult and all this horrible stuff, right? The only thing about all this, about everyone hoping that Din Djarin like leaves the cult, right? The only thing about this is that I think about the Jedi, and I think about like all the rules that the Jedi have, and and I'm like, but I mean, is this cult really that different than the Jedi? I mean, like the Jedi didn't allow relationships, they didn't allow like all this other stuff, right? So it's got me thinking of like, this is exactly the same thing, really. Like we should be, if we're rooting for Din Djarin to leave the this cult, we should be rooting for all of our Jedi main characters to leave the Jedi, right? I don't know. I was just thinking about that the other day. I was like, this is kind of the same thing. Anyways, so yeah, Bo-Katan, for now, she's being accepted into this group. So what actually happens after this, I couldn't tell you. I have no idea, but it's fascinating. And of course we got Dr. Pershing and this captain who tricked him into gathering all his lab equipment, and now she's frying his brain. Man, this was a fantastic episode. I love it when Star Wars gets all, kind of political thriller, conspiracy. It's like someone's gonna betray somebody, something's going on, someone here is being tricked. And of course it was Dr. Pershing being tricked this whole episode into gathering all of his stuff. Yeah, just I loved it. I loved everything about this episode. This was amazing. Oh man. All right, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.